This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Sign up now at FanDuel.com/Boston. And new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Check them out, FanDuel.com/Boston. Well, Greg, I wish we had better news to talk about today, my man. I wish we were talking about great things. Even good things would be passable today. But, of course, we've got to start with Jack Jones and the story, what happened to him last week. He appeared in East Boston Municipal Court yesterday. He pled not guilty to 9 weapons charges. The 25-year-old was arrested, of course, going back to last week, June 16th at Logan Airport. 2 loaded Glock 9mm firearms found in his carry-on luggage. He posted a $30,000 bail. He's expected to return to court August 18th. That's an off day prior to the Patriots preseason game against the Packers. If you're wondering, if you haven't read, if you've been living under a rock, the charges that Jones is currently facing, in addition to an airport security violation, he's charged with 2 counts each of unlawful possession of a firearm, carrying a loaded firearm, possession of a large capacity magazine, and possession of ammunition without a firearm ID card. First and foremost, Greg, just your reaction to this arrest when you heard it, saw it, and read about it.
My initial reaction was like, really? I mean, come on, Jack. I mean, you have to be smarter than this. I mean, this is a guy that we just got done. I certainly got done writing about. I think we talked about that. Okay, we all know his background. He slid to the 4th round in the draft because he had a plethora of issues in college. He was at 3 different colleges. We know about the arrest at Panda Express. That went from felony charges to misdemeanor charges. Had issues even at Arizona State. I mean, he basically flunked out of USC, went to another college in the middle where he didn't play football, then ended up at Arizona State. Had suspension issues there, is fighting. And so you knew his background and you understood why he slid in the draft. You understood that the talent has always been there. I mean, we're talking about a 5-star recruit out of college, going to USC. And so the talent's always been there. His rookie year, he certainly flashed at times. I think, the Packers and Browns game back to back that he had last year were 2 of the better games by any quarterback on this team. Now, it didn't sustain itself. I mean, I would say he was inconsistent. He certainly made plays. He gave up a lot of plays, but that's typical of a rookie cornerback and the struggles is, we sort of talk about Gonzalez going forward here. I mean, those things are going to happen. I would say he had a good, solid rookie season, but he ended up being suspended by the team. So, not only did you have the issues in college, now all of a sudden he has issues with the team. Belichick basically said that that was over and done with when we spoke to him at the league meetings. To my eyes, out at the practices where we were, I thought he had a really good spring to the point, and I think the coaches thought that too, to the point that he was the top cornerback in the final practice before the break, before summer camp. Right. Gonzalez was on the second team. Jack Jones went up to the first team. To me, in my opinion, that was the coaching staff saying, hey, you screwed up last year. Everybody screws up. You've done the right things. You've played really well. Here's a little attaboy to show you like, hey, you're doing a good job. Give him some confidence going into training camp. And then, just a few days later, he does this, and it was colossally stupid. And, there's really no excuse for it. And, just disappointment, not shocked given his background, but just disappointed because the Patriots keep giving him chances. They gave him a chance by drafting him. They gave him a chance by playing him last year. They gave him a chance after he got suspended, give him a chance to start, and then he ruins their trust. So, I would say disappointment was probably my initial reaction.
Yeah, disappointment is the perfect word, I think, because we see this young man. He's got a ton of talent, as you mentioned, Greg. Talent is not the question. His ability to play football on the field is not a question. And I don't think it's really ever been a question. Maybe the fact that he's not as big and muscular as some would want him to be. That was really a lot of the on-field question stuff. But when you saw him play last year, when you see what he did in camp and mandatory minicamp, you guys watched, him, as you said, kind of grow into that. And I agree with you that Bill Belichick was, I think, sending a message to him of saying, hey, man, good job of sticking with the program here. You've done right this offseason. You've looked good. And we're going to give you this carrot at the end of minicamp as we lead into training camp in late July. And now he really just blows all of that up. And I don't think if you're Jack Jones, I don't think you're concerned right now, or you shouldn't be concerned about your football career. You should be concerned whether or not you're going to jail and what you're facing here. We'll get into that a little bit about, this case and the defense attorney and the performance that she put in yesterday at that courthouse. But, it's just that some of the history here, it's not shocking. It's disappointing, but it's not shocking. We knew he had red flags. We knew there were things that happened off field. We knew this was always a possibility. We hoped that it wouldn't happen. We believe in second chances for the most part in this country. And we hope that with the second chance, you mentioned maybe third, fourth chance, that Jack Jones would finally realize his position in life and this opportunity. And it's rather obvious that he doesn't understand that golden opportunity that lays in front of him right now, or he just can't shake some of this stuff that's, within him. And I know Devin McCourty, I listened to Tommy say that, Devin said he's a good kid, bad kid, whatever, irresponsible. And everybody knows the rules. You can't roll into an airport with a couple of Glocks in your carry-on with ammunition and magazines. Like you can't do it. You should know better than that. And especially given this happened a couple of weeks after he was, getting on Ja via social media, it makes it look, that much worse, because here he is on Twitter or whatever telling people how ridiculous the Ja Morant thing is. And then here he is a couple weeks later walking into Logan with a couple of guns. So disappointing. And you just would hope that the young man would learn from his prior mistakes. And he obviously hasn't. What do you think about the Patriots? How do you think they feel about this, Greg?
They're pretty ticked off. I know that they're just like shaking their head, and they can't believe that Jack Jones would put himself and the team in this position. Now that's fine that they're ticked off, but it looks from their actions or inaction to this point, I don't think they're going to do anything anytime soon. I mean, that could change. Robert Kraft could wake up tomorrow and be like, that guy's gone. Like he was trouble in college. We gave him a chance. He got suspended at the end of his rookie year, not doing the right thing. Like, what are we doing here? This guy just keeps doing it. There's a saying that, people tell you who they are. And, it's whether you choose to ignore it or not. And, I could see the Patriots all of a sudden waking up and being like, this guy's not worth the trouble, and releasing him. But that they haven't done it to this point tells me that they're going to let this play out. And I think that has to do with his talent level and, where they are at the cornerback position.
I was going to ask you that, and it was kind of going to be mostly a rhetorical question, but do you think they hang on to this guy? Do you think that Jack Jones is already released if he's a 6th round pick, 7th round pick, UDFA, somebody who they might not believe is a starting corner in the league? And instead you've got Jack Jones, who I have to imagine they look at and say, man, we got great value for him in the draft. He should have been a 1st or 2nd round pick. We picked him knowing some of these red flags. This guy could be at least a number 2 corner for us. He could be an outside guy for the next 5-6 years for us. We got him on a great contract, blah, 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 blah. And we see this all the time in sports, don't we, Greg? And we see it a lot in the NFL. If you have a talent level, man, you're going to get a gig, and you're going to get opportunities that other guys won't. We saw Greg Hardy in Dallas, and we could list all of the names over the prior 10, 15 years of guys who have gotten into some serious issues away from the field. They've been overlooked because that organization feels that they have just too much talent to let that guy go. If Jack Jones is somebody who's barely hanging on to this roster, I would say Shaun Wade, but the Patriots traded for him, so maybe not even Shaun Wade. But if he was somebody that just wasn't showing enough, I think he'd be gone already. And your talent gives you the opportunity, especially in the NFL. I got to believe Patriots are frustrated. They're angry, but they should, if they're being realistic and they're being honest with themselves, they should say, yeah, we knew about the risks. We knew this was a possibility. Maybe not the specific charges and the specific incident, but we knew drafting this guy that something could have happened, especially after the suspension last year. They should look at themselves and evaluate their decision-making. And maybe that's part of this, where they say, we knew this could come up. Maybe we feel we could work with this guy through these problems, but how much is too much? As you're saying, one day do you wake up and say, all right, enough's enough. We got to draw the line somewhere. Every time we have a conversation like this with the Patriots, Aaron Hernandez is going to come up, and his name is going to come up, and questions are going to be asked about, does the Aaron Hernandez history factor in because of what happened with the organization? How does Robert Kraft feel about certain things with guns and gun violence? It reminds me of when Myra Kraft passed away, heavy on domestic violence. And usually when the Patriots see something along those lines, it's a hard line. Does Aaron Hernandez in any way, Greg, factor into what's going to happen here with the Patriots and Jack Jones?
A little bit. I mean, it certainly has to give them certainly more consideration about the factors and all this than anything else. I'll say this. You talked about, Devin McCourty saying like, he's a good kid. I will say there were a lot of people in the organization who would have said the same thing about Aaron Hernandez at the time. Maybe not some of the guys in the locker room. Some of the guys in the locker room knew, he was a quote unquote bad dude. I talked to one NFL general manager about Jack Jones, and he used the word like, quote unquote, this guy was a bad guy in college. This isn't a surprise. Now, the Patriots, in terms of Aaron Hernandez, and I don't know, I don't know the nuts and bolts of this. I knew more about Hernandez and his background at the time, and I did a lot of reporting, all throughout that. But to me, just from 10,000 feet, the difference, if the Patriots want to read into this, is Jack Jones. Aaron Hernandez, you can make the argument that he had violence in his background. Like there were incidents in college that came out that there were violent incidents. Jack Jones, to this point, it doesn't look like he does. Now he has the Panda Express arrest, and that was 3 a.m. I went back and I looked at the Facebook page from the police department that, and his mugshots on there. There were police report at the time. And, that was a real incident. I mean, they got busted in progress. The police got called in progress. Guns were not part of it, which is good. They did have a lookout who fled the scene. Like this wasn't just some knucklehead episode. This was, there was a string of robberies at the time connected to former Long Beach Poly athletes, and Jack Jones was one of those guys. So it was disturbing. The thing about that the Patriots have to ask themselves real questions about. They have to really consider this. And I'm sure certain Patriots fans who don't want to hear anything bad about their players, they're going to get sensitive about this stuff. But I mean, if you're being unbiased, like you just have to look at, all right, the guy at the very least has already displayed questionable judgment throughout his past. Yeah. Including when he's been a professional with the Patriots with some of his decisions last year. And reportedly a suspension came from he didn't want to do the right things rehab wise. And he talked back to Belichick. Now, Jack Jones has disputed that on Twitter. Albert Breer stands by it. I'm just stating facts there. So he has questionable behavior, and now you're entering very serious handguns and other guns probably into this mix. Now, look, if teams had concerns about guys just because they had guns, that'd be like half the roster at least. I mean, look, we know we have a gun problem in this country, and young athletes with disposable income, they have gun issues as well. probably more than the general public. And so, you just worry about, if you're the Patriots, you have to ask serious questions about, like, all right, this guy has serious judgment. He tried to rob a Panda Express. He hasn't smartened up from that. Now he's introducing guns into the mix. Are we worried about all that stuff coming together? I mean, you have to ask those questions if you are the head of an organization. You might come down and say, your head of security might say, it's not that big of a risk, but you certainly, with Aaron Hernandez in the background, and we heard Belichick once we got back from, I think it was training camp after all that stuff. And he said, he took responsibility, and he said, we need to make corrections going forward in how we evaluate people. To me, that has to play into the mix here with Jack Jones, or else, the Patriots are it's a dereliction of duty. And, if something does happen, if he does escalate for some reason, and you're hoping that this incident is the final correction that gets him on the right path. But if something else happens, the Patriots can't say, but they were surprised about it.
Let's talk about FanDuel.com.
Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/Boston to join today. I love the app. It's so simple. Nick's been talking about it forever. He's been using FanDuel forever. He loves it. I love it. It's so easy and convenient. You got to get on there and check it out. So don't miss your chance to snag a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission.
Yeah, and of course, I don't want anybody to take from this that we're comparing the Hernandez situation to Jack Jones, because it's obviously a different level. What Greg and I are talking about is you have history of off-field behavior that led to the Aaron Hernandez situation. People knew, I don't want to relitigate and go back and go through all of the stories. I mean, documentaries have been done, books have been written. There were a lot of things that Aaron Hernandez was doing in college. There were a lot of things that Aaron Hernandez was doing in Providence and in Boston. There was a lot of crap that was going on, and most of it, if not all of it, was overlooked. Because, again, it goes back to the talent. Aaron Hernandez was a special talent on the field. And so it's looking at a very special talent. And maybe, Jack Jones isn't as talented as Hernandez was. I don't know. Jack's young. Who knows? But when you have somebody who's talented, somebody who you think could be important to the football team, and they have the off-field activity that could lead to bigger issues and bigger problems down the road, when do you cut the cord? And I have to imagine, Greg, that with the Aaron Hernandez history, that cord, that leash should be shorter. It should be shorter, especially when you talk about firearms and you talk about ammunition, showing up to an airport with what he showed up with. That has to factor in. I agree with you. Hopefully I pronounce her name correctly. Rosemary Scapicchio. She is the defense attorney for Jack Jones, and she made an appearance yesterday. Some would call it a performance in front of the cameras. Just your thoughts on Scapicchio. I'll pronounce it Scapicchio. There's an I. So your thoughts on Rosemary Scapicchio's performance yesterday in front of the media, Greg?
Well, we know that she's good at her job. She's part of, there's some Netflix documentary about some case against the Boston police that she got a favorable outcome for her client who had been in jail for something like 20 years. She knows what she's doing. She's a Boston girl, for sure, with a capital B. And she knows what she's doing. And so, she's obviously going to aggressively defend her client. That being said, that was quite the straw man argument that she presented the other day. I counted it. She used the word thug 14 times, gang 7 times in 5 minutes. which is pretty impressive. And she was indicting social media, which, okay. I mean, a few people out there might have called, I didn't see it, but some people might have called him a wannabe thug or gangster as a result of this. But then again, you could find just about somebody who says anything on social media, since it's such a bastion of the truth. But, here's what I didn't like. Look, first of all, she's obviously she's playing the race card in some capacity, and that's fine. And she certainly has valid arguments on that in general in terms of our justice system. This specific case, you read the arrest report, it seemed pretty cut and dry to me that, TSA was, the x-ray machine saw the guns, alerted the state trooper who came over, asked him questions, just observe, Jack Jones wouldn't answer any questions. Opened up the bag, saw what he saw. It's all on body cam footage, so we'll be able to see it. Doesn't seem like there was any sort of racist bias there. So I just worry about if this is probably a lot of grandstanding that, maybe threatening the Attorney General's office that, hey, if you go down those roads, if you aggressively pursue these charges, well, we're going to aggressively pursue everything. And that's, we're looking in the background of every TSA agent that was there, the state police officer. Like, if there's any shady, racial stuff there, it's going to come out. That's fine defending your client. If you're the Patriots, does that play really well that they would get aggressive with law enforcement in this regard when, Jack Jones was clearly in the wrong for what he did? And the other thing that I didn't like, and it was very minor, and I know some people on my site, didn't like it, but there was a follow-up question very early in that press conference when she said, we're not going to answer questions about this. And one reporter was like, why not? And she started to answer the question, and Jack Jones gave a long lingering look, stare at this reporter. And I thought Jack conducted himself, other than that, I thought he conducted himself well. He looked humble. He looked the way that you should look. Remember, the Patriots are watching this stuff. But, it was sort of like an intimidation stare, who the heck do you think you are asking these questions? And to me, that was a bad look for Jack Jones. But look, as far as the case, and he's got the right attorney, I'm sure they're going to argue that he had, and she said that he had no knowledge of what was going on, that the guns were in there. Yes, they were in his bag, but he had no knowledge of it. So we're getting into a situation where it sounded like that he had a female with him. There's going to be some sort of fall guy, or at least somebody steps up and said, I put the guns in there. Jack didn't know anything about it. Now it's a question of who believes who, but that seems to be the tactic, a popular tactic in these sort of situations.
Yeah, Scapicchio, she did what a lot of attorneys do, as a lot of defense attorneys do, which is immediately go on the aggressive PR war versus the facts. And from the facts that we see in the reports and everything that's been mentioned so far, as you said, Greg, TSA, they see the guns, they call the officer over, ask some questions. Jack Jones not really being responsive to those questions, not reacting to those questions. You open the bag and what's there is there. Now, I agree that she immediately also left the door open for it was his or her fault, not Jack's fault. Whether that's going to fly, I have no idea. I also saw that Michael Hurley, who I appreciate and respect, very smart guy. He mentioned the history of Boston, which I do think plays a role in this. From her standpoint, the race issues that the city has had and all of that stuff plays a role. And so she's going to use whatever she can utilize to defend her client. And right now, unfortunately for her and Jack Jones, from what we know, everything is against him. The facts are against him. This looks like a really tough case to win. Really, really tough case to win from what we know. So she's going to use the other stuff and see, as you mentioned, maybe she can go after some of these TSA agents. Maybe she brings the officer in. Maybe there's something about their history. That's what happens. They've got to use what they've got to use. As far as the Jack Jones glare, I didn't watch all 5+ minutes of the press conference in front of the media yesterday, but I did notice, and this is something that, fans and all of that, they might say to Greg, their reaction might be to Greg, oh, who cares? It's like 2 seconds. You looked at the guy. But what Greg is looking at is from the media standpoint, okay? And when your defense attorney is utilizing public relations and PR, and she's obviously going to be very grandiose in some of these performances that she's going to put on, because don't get it twisted, they're performances. This is a performance art to go along with it. This is like, the stuff you might see on Law and Order every once in a while. When you have that moment, even if it's for a brief moment, that moment happens. And if you go online and just Google Jack Jones charges or Jack Jones guns, and if there is any picture other than the one that Greg's talking about that goes along with the headline, be surprised. Because I saw that picture of Jack Jones glaring at that reporter almost every story I looked at yesterday. And that's why you've got to be so strict with the way you react to everything, because 2 seconds, it's 2 seconds in real time, but one picture can last a long time. And people will look at that. They'll see the story, gun charges listed, and that picture of Jack Jones glaring at the reporter. And as Greg mentioned, the magical word, and I'm sure Scapicchio, talking to her client, had warned him beforehand and likely talked to him afterwards as soon as she saw that picture surface, optics. And people hate optics. But when you're trying to put on a defense for your client, everything matters. And that picture doesn't help Jack Jones. It just doesn't. Even if it was for 2 seconds, that photo is going to last a lifetime. So that's something I'm sure he probably regrets. Mm-hmm. Ja Morant, the situation in the NBA, we've seen Ja get 25 games over the weekend. From the NBA, he had a couple of issues with guns on social media. Does that factor into Roger Goodell's decision-making at all?
I think it might. I'm fearful that it will. I mean, look, Nick, how long have we been covering Roger Goodell? And we know that basically every decision that he makes, he basically licks his finger and puts it in the air to figure out which way the wind's blowing. And right now, with after the Ja Morant situation, and look, it's different because first of all, he had an issue during the season, which led to an 8-game suspension. Then he had another situation, more in public, with the guns. One was in a nightclub. And I think that's what really put it over the edge for Adam Silver, where, he's going to miss basically like 30% of the schedule now. And so, there were multiple violations. I think that, and I wrote a little bit about this where, look, the league had a huge gun problem when Goodell first came into the league, like right before he came in. And remember, he came in really, really hard and really aggressive as far as discipline, from 05 was before Goodell with Mike Doss. But, Bengals wide receiver Chris Henry got 2 games. I think it was 8 games reduced to 2 games for firearms, along with other issues. Tank Johnson, 8 games for a bunch of weapons. I mean, basically like an arsenal, along with other violations. Plaxico Burress and a nightclub. We all remember, the gun in his sweatpants and dropping it and shooting himself. And
Cheddar Bob. He pulled a Cheddar Bob from 8 Mile.
Yeah. And, along with, he had to go to jail for it. So, but that Plaxico Burress situation, that was in 2008. That's 15 years ago. That's the last time, as far as I could tell, that there's been a suspension with firearms at the heart of the suspension. And so, but I think that, you look around and there have been growing incidents, Quinnen Williams, other people in recent years, along with this country, the NFL, you could make the argument, and I'm sure Goodell's going to look at this, and Adam Silver has looked at this, that there is a growing gun problem in the league. Again, I thought Goodell did a good job coming in and sort of coming down hard, and as a result, not a ton of issues, for the league since then. But things have been cropping up more and more. And I could see definitely Roger Goodell looking at this, looking what Adam Silver did. It's not the same situation, but I could see Goodell and his advisors saying like, look, Adam Silver, looks strong. He looks like he's trying to make corrections for this player and for the league. And how are you going to look if you just let this slide? A guy bringing in, 2 loaded handguns into Logan Airport, does that rise to them getting involved earlier? I mean, the facts shouldn't really be all in that much in dispute. The NFL will get an investigator on it to see, what they're going to argue ahead of time. And so, yeah, I do think that it factors in, and we all know that Goodell does not use fairness. It's his judgment. He can do whatever he wants. It's not about fairness. And yes, I could see Goodell, because of what went on in the NBA, because of the growing gun problem in the league, I could see him making an example of Jack Jones in this case, and at least, putting him on the commissioner's suspension list or, something to start the season, something along those lines. Yeah, I could see that.
One thing I know about Roger Goodell is that he's going to drag his feet, and the NFL will do everything that they possibly can to put this at the doorstep of the Patriots. They're going to want the Patriots to handle it themselves first. And we're talking about all sorts of different stories, but just go to Deshaun Watson, which was the most polarizing story recently in the NFL as far as off-field behavior and what was going to happen with Deshaun. The NFL were hands off. The NFL just let it play out, and they forced Houston's hand to, deal with Watson. Then they had, Cleveland kind of deal with the Watson situation. The NFL, it's almost like they don't want to put themselves in the middle of making these very, very strong deliberations and decisions. They like for the team to step up first and say, okay, we're going to, we're going to handle it this way, which is why in Houston, Deshaun was like, on the active roster, but then he was deactivated game day. They played that game where he was still getting paid. He was still part of the team, but he was never around. He was never seen. He wasn't going to play. The NFL wasn't saying anything. They just kept him away from the field. And Goodell could have easily stepped up and put him on the commissioner's exempt list. He didn't. And so I think Goodell is going to be calculated with this as well, because that's what he is always. He is always calculated about these decisions. And I think he's going to force Robert Kraft and the Patriots to make a decision before the NFL says anything about this. I think he's going to put it on the team's hands.
That's a good point that you bring up, Nick, and just hearing you discuss this. I mean, don't you think, the smart situation that, would be for the Patriots to come out with their own suspension of Jack Jones? I mean, look, he already screwed up last year. He already incurred a team suspension for, whatever you want to believe. And then he goes and does this. I mean, first of all, the Patriots would get positive PR from their fans being proactive. And it's a way to sort of mitigate and see how things play out, where you're like, all right, we're waiting to see how things come out. But for now, this is his second strike. We already suspended him for 2 games. Now he's suspended from us without pay for the first 4 games of the season. He can practice, he can do the preseason stuff, all that stuff, but we're suspending him the first month of the season because of team violations. Like, to me, some sort of suspension, whether it's 2 or 4 games, considering they already suspended him, to me, I think would be the best possible course, and, also possibly send a message to Jack.
It's also weird too, before we get to the on-field stuff, which we'll get to in a minute. It's just a weird deal with Jones, because you just mentioned it, Greg. You already suspended this guy last season. So it's difficult to compare the two things, right? It's difficult to compare walking into Logan with a couple of firearms that are loaded with ammunition to not following rehab and talking back to Belichick. But they are going to get compared. And if the team is not proactive, and if the team doesn't do anything with Jack Jones from a disciplinary standpoint, people are going to look back, and it's fair. They're going to look back and say, oh, wait a minute. So not following your rehab plan and talking back to the coach resulted in a suspension. but walking into Logan Airport with 2 firearms and ammunition doesn't lead to a suspension. Where's the disconnect there? And that's when, are you looking at violations on the field and in the team facility? Are you looking at those violations differently than some off-field stuff, which is much more serious than skipping a rehab or telling Belichick one day to bleep off? That's going to happen. And so it's going to be fascinating because the Patriots could totally go. And it's interesting because, of course, you have Caserio down in Houston who handled the Deshaun Watson situation. And again, they kept him on the roster. They just, played the roster games when they made sure he was inactive on game days, but he wasn't talking to the media. Patriots could do that with Jack Jones. They could do that for the entire season if they want. That's what Houston did with Watson. Or they could, charge towards this thing head on and say, no, we're suspending them for 4 games, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of options for the Patriots. It's going to be compelling to see which option they go with. On the field, just to me, lots of pressure on Christian Gonzalez now, Greg. And, Jonathan Jones, we've talked about him, maybe sliding around defensively, maybe some safety, maybe some slot. To me, I want Jonathan Jones on the outside if Jack Jones is not a part of this equation. I don't want anything to do with Jalen Mills. And maybe the silver lining is this could give an opportunity to Marcus Jones to possibly play some slot.
Yeah, I agree. Boy, you love yourself some Jalen Mills. But I agree. I think, let's just go with the assumption that Jack Jones is not available either for the first couple of games or what have you. This now, before that, if Jack Jones did not get into this, you could see the Patriots, they could, if they wanted to, bring Christian Gonzalez along slowly. They had the option of starting Jack Jones and Jonathan Jones on the boundary and then, putting somebody in the slot, whether that's Marcus Jones, who we're hopeful for, or Miles Bryant, everybody's favorite Miles Bryant. They could mix and match. They could put Jalen Mills back at boundary corner. But, now without Jack Jones, I think there's no net for Christian Gonzalez now. I think he has to be out there. Yep. You have to go in with the mentality that he's going to be out there week 1, for the gauntlet for, the Eagles, which present all sorts of issues between Jalen Mills running and passing and, A.J. Brown and, all Devontae Smith and, all that they have going on. Just a huge challenge. It puts a lot of pressure on Christian Gonzalez. And so we'll get a lot of answers about some of the questions that, we and the rest of the NFL has had about him pretty early, which is certainly interesting. And, I think it's exciting that, put the kid out there. But there's no question that this is a blow. If Jones is not available, it's a blow to this team, because I think when you looked at it, you had the makings of, between Christian Gonzalez, obviously talented, Jack Jones, obviously talented, and Jonathan Jones, obviously a good veteran player. 3 pretty good cornerbacks with different size, speed combinations and what they could do. And you looked at it and you're like, all right, if these guys play to their level, they might have something at cornerback. Now it's not quite as good. I still think it's pretty good, but it's really thin. I mean, you're talking about at true boundary cornerback, the depth chart is Gonzalez, Jack Jones, and you can flip-flop those. And then it's a huge drop-off to Sean Wade, who's freaking horrible, has been since he's been here, probably only here because they traded, spent some draft capital to get him from the Ravens. And then you have Quandre Mosley. Nobody really knows who that is. And Amir Speed and Isaiah Bolden, the 2 rookie late round picks who are more special teamers than anything else, even though Amir Speed, I will say, man, the kid is long, 6'3". He's all that on the field and speed and, but can he play? We have no idea. But so the biggest blow is it leaves them really thin at boundary cornerback. Now, if everything goes according to plan, if you go out there with Christian Gonzalez and then Jonathan Jones, and then Marcus Jones comes in, who both I think you and I have high hopes for as a slot cornerback, then, I think they still have the potential to be, pretty good. They're just, again, the big thing is they are thin. They are one injury away, and we all know the soft tissue injuries at that position. And, it's similar to wide receiver. We saw it last year, all the injury issues that they went through at cornerback. They would be extremely thin, and you really worry about that over the course of the 17-game season now.
Yeah, and Jack Jones, I talked about, his wiry frame. And that was one question about his on-field ability and how he would transition to the NFL. But what he does have is he's a decently sized guy as far as height and length. He's about 5'11", which look, he's not 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", but he is somebody, that brought them a little bit more length and height on the outside. And now you lose that part of it. So, that's something else you've got to keep in mind. All right, let's do some rapid fire questions about DeAndre Hopkins and left tackle. First of all, Greg, anything going to happen here with DeAndre?
It doesn't look like it, unless it seems from all the reports and his social media and stuff like that, it just seems like between both the known suitors, the Titans and the Patriots, nobody's bowled him over with an offer, which makes him, where you sort of get in this position and be like, all right, this is the best and final offer that we're going to give you. It's going to go down after this if you're going to wait. And, could that make him jump? Yeah. It could, but are the Patriots going to do that? There's nothing in their history. I mean, He did it. They did it for Antonio Brown and got burned. So, are they going to do it again? It doesn't look like it. So this is going to be a long process. And, like Burt Breer talked about, keep an eye on the Chiefs because they're working on a long-term extension with Chris Jones that could free up cap space for the team. And then all of a sudden they get in the I think Hopkins' preference is to strike a balance between money and best chance to win a Super Bowl and playing with an elite quarterback. But, like we've talked about, he's a different type of cat. He likes his money. If a team comes out there and just says, hey, we're going to give you $15 million guaranteed with upside, I think he'd sign tomorrow. But I don't think there's a team out there that's going to do that right now.
Thought it was interesting. He sent that tweet out yesterday, and my Lord, did everybody retweet that thing and talk about it when he just said, hey, I'll make you other receivers better on the next team I'm on. People are just, I guess, desperate for DeAndre Hopkins news. So he could record himself, make just, I don't know, farting and put it out there, and people would probably talk about it and say, hey, DeAndre Hopkins passed gas today on Twitter. Here's the video and audio to prove it. Like, everybody's just dying for something. This could have been, I don't want to say it was desperate, but it did reek of a little desperation from Hopkins because nobody's been really talking about him, not on a national level. Obviously, locally, a lot of focus has been on him with the Patriots. And I'm sure the same is down in Nashville and Tennessee. But, nationally, there's not a lot of Hopkins heat. And it was at a time, it was him and OBJ. We were talking about it all the time. And the NFL Network behind me right now talking about it. ESPN talking about it. And Hopkins took his visits. They talked about it. And now it's back to, well, we'll wait and see. And it was almost like somebody saying, hey, remember me? I'm still around in Tennessee or New England. I can make you better. I didn't really get why he's just randomly tweeting that outside of trying to get some spotlight again on him. I think he's trying to get his market going. He doesn't have any visits that I understand that are coming up. He had 2 visits, Tennessee, New England. Neither team obviously felt the urgency to drop the bag on the table and sign the guy. I think he's trying to use any leverage that he has, and he doesn't have much. So it'll be interesting. I wonder if something in the conversation made Belichick hesitate to not pull the trigger and maybe put more money down. Maybe, like you said, it's the Antonio Brown thing. It's just Belichick's way. He's not necessarily going to jump at the opportunity to pay a guy at the front of the line, especially someone who's, now 31 years old. And he's not the same guy. He would help this offense for sure. And I want him to be a Patriot, but he's not the same guy he was 3 or 4 years ago. So, I mean, until he takes any more visits or a move happens, like you said, Chris Jones, maybe Stephon Diggs in Buffalo, maybe something happens there. There's some movement there. I think DeAndre is pretty much stuck. And he's left with Tennessee or New England. And I don't think New England's looking at Tennessee going, yeah, okay, well, We have Mac Jones, who's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but they got Ryan Tannehill. We might be a 9-win team, 10-win team with DeAndre Hopkins. Tennessee might be a 6 or 7-win team with DeAndre Hopkins. There's nothing really that Tennessee gives DeAndre that we can't give him, aside from them maybe putting a bunch of money on the table. And they didn't do that when he left. And they still haven't done that when he visited here. And if they were going to put money on the table, they would have done it before DeAndre went to New England. If you really want the guy, you're not allowing him, or you're going to make it really, really tough. You're going to make it incredibly tough for that guy to take that visit in New England if you're Tennessee. And they obviously did not put enough money on the table to make DeAndre kind of, second guess himself, or immediately when he left New England, he would have turned around. He would have pivoted back to Tennessee and said, all right, baby, I love Nashville. I'm coming home. I'll put my cowboy hat on and everything. I'm going to sell you on this. And he didn't do that. How about Trent Brown? Any word on how the Patriots are feeling about that guy right now?
Yeah, they're not happy. They were not happy with him being late, which was simply due to his travel, waiting until very late on Sunday when that hailstorm hit. And the way he showed up. I mean, he was really overweight, could barely get through a drill, and they are not happy. But they put themselves in this situation where they need Trent Brown. They need a good Trent Brown. Now the question is, how do you get him to be that guy? And I don't know if there are any ready answers. I mean, if you give him more money, is suddenly he going to be, on the program? I don't know. So they're in a whole heap of trouble, Nick, at tackle. I mean, if Trent Brown isn't ready to go, I mean, I think if you look at what they have, between Riley Reif and Calvin Anderson and Connor McDermott and Sidy So, I would make the argument that right now, Trent Brown, when he's right, he's the only good starting tackle on the roster. Everybody else is, really number threes at best. Maybe So has a, higher upside, and we'll see once the pad gets on in camp, and maybe he can start at right tackle. That's great. There's no chance he can play left tackle. So, they are living dangerously at offensive tackle, which almost makes the Hopkins stuff moot. I mean, if they can't block up, to get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, what are we even talking about? But I think that offensive tackle, especially left tackle, has turned into a 3-alarm fire for this team, and has to be one of the biggest concerns going into training camp.
Yeah, good luck to Bill O'Brien and Adrian Clem trying to work this offensive line out and not have your quarterback get killed on the field on Sundays. Trent Brown has won my Nick Cattle's Most Infuriated With Player of the Year award already, and we're not even in training camp yet. So I'd like to congratulate him on that. This guy, I'm absolutely done with him. I have no patience for him. And look, he might go drop 30 pounds on the treadmill before he gets back to camp, and hurrah, hurrah, hooray, hooray for the dude. But he doesn't, where's the professionalism? Where's the pride in the gig that you have? You figured walking into a contract here, he might show up in shape. And it's just, he takes his talent for granted more than anybody on this football team. If he is in shape and healthy, he is a really, really good offensive tackle. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't care less 90% of the time. Show up in shape. Step away from the buffet for 3 months and show up ready to play. I mean, this is not difficult. The dude's a veteran. He's been around the league for a long time now. And if I'm the Patriots, they're in a position of not really having any options, as you mentioned, and that's the problem. If they had any option they could go to right now, I think his ass would be gone. Why keep him around? He doesn't want to be in shape. He had an up and down season last year. Again, when he's motivated and he's in shape and he's healthy, he plays well. And then sometimes he'll be a complete puddle on the field, and he can't get out of his own way, literally and figuratively. So, I have no patience for Trent Brown. I really don't. And I don't know if they can make something with Cincinnati work. Greg, I know since he has 2 or 3 tackles, Jonah Williams wants out because they shifted him to the right side. Jonah makes $12.6 million this year in the final year of his contract. I don't think Cincy would hold teams over a barrel to trade the guy. I don't think the asking price would be too crazy or too prohibitive. The question is $12.6 million. I mean, look, I'd rather pay $12 million or whatever I got to pay for somebody who I believe will be motivated with a chip on his shoulder that will show up in shape and actually care about playing well this year than having the low base salary with the incentives deal that Trent Brown has, but not knowing what the hell you're going to get from week to week with that guy.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Bengals they signed Orlando Brown in the offseason. They have Jonah Williams, who I think is on the franchise tag, or at least the final year of his deal. And they also have La'el Collins, who has his own colorful past. But so they have just those three guys. Those are three at least good starting tackles in this league. And all three of them have the ability to play left tackle, at least somewhat. To me, between Hopkins and the Bengals offensive tackles, if the Patriots are serious about being a real team, being a serious team this year and a contender, to me, they have to go and get both players. They have to go and get, Jonah Williams, and they have to get DeAndre Hopkins. Now, does it suddenly make them like Super Bowl favorites? No, DeAndre Hopkins is available for a reason. He's 31, all the issues, practice, injury, stuff like that. Jonah Williams, if he was so good, why would the Bengals why would they sign Orlando Brown to a big deal? Why would they bring in La'el Collins? So Jonah Williams is no, surefire guy either. But, you got to take a chance. Right now they don't have enough at receiver, and they certainly don't have enough at tackle. And if what are we doing here if you're not going to make a real run at things? And these guys aren't going to break the bank. And the Patriots have a ton of cap space next year where they can borrow against that cap for this year. It's not, putting a ton of assets into thing. I just think if the Patriots think, if they're serious about what they're doing, they got to make a couple aggressive moves to at least give themselves a chance. I think those two guys would give the Patriots a chance going into the season.
Agree with you 100%. If this team is all about winning, and it should be, if this team is about getting to the playoffs and winning a playoff game for the first time in a few years, then you make those moves. There are two positions of need. You have an obvious need at offensive tackle. You need a wide receiver, especially with Tyquan Thornton and Juju Smith-Schuster's injury history. Devontae Parker has a concussion and injury history as well. So, we've talked about the lack of true depth at wide receiver, and you've got two guys. Really just comes down to money. If you're willing to pay the money and find ways to kind of maneuver and create some space, they already have $14-15 million there, and they can do some other things as well, as you mentioned. Why not upgrade your football team? And why not give your team the best chance to get to the playoffs, especially in this division? And you don't have to worry about long-term bad deals. You don't have to worry about handcuffing yourself down the road. Hopkins is not costing you any assets. As I said, I don't think Jonah Williams at this point is going to cost you a huge asset to bring him in. So I would be knocking down every door, and I would be doing everything that I could if I were the Patriots and Bill Belichick to add two players that I think upgrade two positions of need on this team. Let's wrap things up with the BSJ member question of the day. Bedard, you released your latest 53-man roster. Very thin at linebacker. Is that not a problem?
So the only, big changes, and we already sort of predicted, we had it that James Robinson, Lynn Bowden, and Yadni Kajust would be gone. We had them released. The big changes that I had was I'm keeping Anthony Firkser as a third tight end for depth, and I've always liked him as a good sort of all-around solid guy, and I think he provides value there. And I'm taking the roster spot from linebacker. We know Raekwon McMillan went on IR. In practices, Mack Wilson was getting his reps, some of the reps there. But, my thinking is here's my thinking. The Patriots don't really like Wilson. It was a surprise to a lot of people that they even brought him back. I think they were just like, yeah, okay, whatever. We'll give it another chance. Maybe the light goes on. He got McMillan's snaps in the offseason, but I think that's just because they had really no other options. And really, he's here, and what he's done so far has basically been sort of like a pass coverage linebacker. But with the Patriots, with the glut of safeties that they have, between Duggar and Jabril Peppers, who's taken another step, and especially Marte Mapu, and Adrian Phillips has played there plenty as well. Like, how many times are you really going to have a linebacker on the field covering anybody, with what you have right now? And so to me, the only linebackers I have on my 53 are Bentley, Tavai, and Chris Board, who we know is a special teams guy. I also think he could provide some coverage if need be due to special teams duties. So to me, Mac Wilson, I released him. I'm only keeping 3 linebackers. I think they're too good at safety. I did have to cut Joshua Bledsoe in my last 53-man roster, but I'm definitely looking for a place to keep him. But I just think where the Patriots are right now, forget about linebackers who can cover. They've never had any guys who are any good at it, especially in recent times. Just go with the safeties and just be done with it.
I don't want to put too much on Mapu, man, but if he could follow the mental part with the physical part and be out there and be available, sounds like the dude that you and I have been talking about for the last several years that this team needs. Some speed, some athleticism at that second level. He could end up being a pretty big piece of this puzzle down the road. I mean, I don't want to put it all on him in the first 8 weeks of the season, but as you lay out the future of this defense and how it projects, he could be a pretty vital piece on that second level and third level for them with some of the versatility. This episode of the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast, Nick Cattle, is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Again, you can check them out, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Sign up now at FanDuel.com/Boston. New customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week and your weekends. If something happens with the Patriots, we'll surely be on top of it. For Greg, I'm Nick. We'll talk to you next time.